Hello everyone, welcome back to the Inspired Lady podcast. It's your girl, Belle Grubb. I am so stoked for today's episode because I am here with one of my really good friends, Arianna. We met at an event a while ago, last year, called Be a Blessing, and she was just one of those people that I automatically clicked with. At that point, I knew I was starting Inspired Lady. We were doing the brand shoots, the planning, but it wasn't actually happening yet, and I instantly knew I wanted her on a podcast episode. She is an anti-diet advocate, a fitness instructor, and someone who's all about changing the wellness and health space to a little bit more of a holistic view and just like loving the beauty through the entire journey. And I love that so much about her. She also hosts a podcast called Not So Niche, and oh my gosh, you guys are gonna love her. Let's just jump right in. So first things first, what are we drinking today? I have a almond milk latte. I've been drinking them so much, I don't know what's wrong with me. What are you drinking, Arianna?
Well, first, I love almond milk lattes. I am also drinking a cold pressed juice. It's an apple lemon juice, and it's from a local juicery here in Grand Rapids, and it's so good. So I like to put all my juices in fancy glasses, so I have a little glass here, and yeah, it's good.
As you should. Oh my gosh, you are already inspiring me. With the fancy juice from the local place, go you. Okay, give us a little bit about your background and just who you are.
Yeah, so I most recently currently finished up my master's in communication, and actually today got a job offer in the fitness space. Yeah, so that's something that I'm really passionate about. I think one of the things I really struggled with disordered eating and over-exercising and all of that throughout my whole life. So I grew up dancing, running, was in a super active family, and kind of fell into a lot of bad habits and disordered patterns throughout that. And so in college, I finally said, enough is enough, and decided learning a little bit more about what health actually means and what good exercise looks like. And the past, I think, 2 years have really been a journey to uncover myself, just regain my trust in myself. And then along with that, learning about how broken our advertising and marketing industry is. And so alongside fitness and teaching people what dieting and all of that looks like, I really want to work in the advertising and marketing space to reform how we can interact both on social media, but just in advertising in terms of breaking free from diet culture. So, yeah.
That's so good. Okay, so, you talk a little bit about being a fitness instructor. Congrats on the job offer. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about that later. But anyways, where did that passion for fitness come in from? So I know, you already touched on, you struggle with eating disorders, but how did you turn to fitness in a way that can be healthy? Because so many girls who struggle with eating disorders turn to fitness as a way to purge anything that they're eating so they don't have to, feel guilty about food. So how did you find fitness as a place to kind of restore your, I don't want to say mental health, but kind of heal a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, like you said, a lot of times fitness can be something that's used badly. And that was how it all started, was I had extreme body dysmorphia. And so when I was running, I was constantly trying to just make myself smaller. I thought that was going to be what made me the best runner. And so I would do workouts on end, wake up at 5 a.m., go join an hour-long workout class, go run after school, and those practices would be, 4 hours long. I would go home, eat dinner, and then do a workout after that. And so fitness for me was kind of a coping skill, but then it also, not a skill really, it was a coping mechanism, but it became something that I realized I needed to step away from. And I think that's the first place where, when we realize that fitness is becoming too much and that we're relying on exercise, I always tell people, step away and then reform your relationship. And so in college, I was able to reform that by really joining, and I think the most beneficial thing was joining studio fitness classes, group fitness classes, really helped me understand how to work out with others, how to not compare my body, and how to celebrate movement together. And it was through the work of some amazing instructors who really celebrated movement and celebrated what we were doing as women, specifically on bikes and while we were stretching, and that it could be a worshipful movement, like we can go in there and whatever your background is. I mean, I had an instructor who played worship music one time and I was just like sobbing on my bike, because I finally realized, oh, this is what God has called me to do, is not to put my body through pain, but to celebrate Him in joyful movement. And so that led me to instructing fitness classes. And I know I keep going on here, but
no, I love it. Keep going.
Yeah. So I started instructing fitness classes for the school that I was attending. And I said, you know what? I don't really know how to do this, but I'm just going to take a leap of faith because it's something I feel really called to. And I started by teaching group cycling. And I remember my first class, I was up in front and I had taken a lot of cycling classes, so I knew what I was doing, but I saw those college-age women out there, and so many of them came in hiding their bodies and kind of ashamed to be there and not really knew what they were doing. And at the end of the class, I just heard this sigh of relief. Like, okay, finally we can be here together and not compare ourselves. And it was like that first moment for a lot of them, I think, where they finally realized what movement could be. And I knew that if I could bring that to others, then that's all I needed, right? Like, that's all that we all need, is just that person in front to help us usher into that type of movement. And so I've been doing it ever since, and it's super fun.
That. Oh my goodness. Okay, so are you only a cycling instructor, or do you do other types of workouts? I don't really know how the fitness instructor field works.
Yeah, so I was a cycling instructor at Cycle Bar for a while and loved that, but our studio unfortunately shut down, which was really, really sad. It was about 2 months ago. And so now I am instructing cycling and Pilates back at a university for students and for staff. And it's something I really like because they're not paying for it, so it's being able to offer them that experience without the high fees, and be able to give students the chance to learn what movement can look like without any barriers. So, yeah.
I love that. Okay, so if you're someone's new to this whole class thing, I mean, there are so many options. Like, even I have been so overwhelmed, like Pilates, bar, cycling, all of these things. What are your personal favorites and why?
Yeah, so I would say cycling is a big one, and I really like it because, not even because of the workout, honestly, just because the music and the instructors are always amazing. I mean, to be able to go in a studio, especially one that has all the lights and everything, and just to work out to fun music is just a different kind of joy, I think. A lot of times they say it's like a club, but a workout. And I'm always like, that's all I need. That's really all I need. So I love cycling. I really like Pilates as well because it focuses a lot on breath and connecting to your body. So you really need that mind-body connection. You can't go in and just phase out and do the workout and not listen to what they're saying. You really have to connect with your body. And I think that really fosters a lot of that worship, and a lot of the connection of understanding yourself. And so that's where I've learned to grow. It's also really challenging, but it's super attainable. And so I think it's a really good place for people to start too, because there's a lot of moments for rest inside of Pilates, and there's a lot of room for growth as well.
So I know you mentioned this before about the intimidation factor of going. Is that something you experienced even as an instructor? I mean, how do you get past something like that? Like, that's scary.
Yeah, it's so scary. I know that every single person is intimidated when they walk into a class, no matter if it's their first class or their 100th. I mean, it's always scary because it's new. Even if you've done a class a million times, you're always getting a different type of workout. And so one of the things that I really like to say to people, and this is, if you're going to the gym by yourself, if you're doing a home workout, or if you're going to a class, everyone has started somewhere. Everyone has had that first class, that first week, that first month, and everyone has felt stupid and like they don't know what they're doing, right? And so I think that's kind of the first point, is realizing that everyone is in the same place and they're all on the journey with you. But then also understanding that it is about you and your body. It is about what you are giving yourself and what you can offer up. And so taking out any of the pressure of these people are looking at me, everything is about me, right? And saying, no, what can I give to this class? What can I put into this workout? And what can I take from this movement? Because people really aren't there to look at you. That was always the biggest thing for me. I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is looking at me. I'm doing this all wrong. I promise you, every single other person in the class is doing something wrong. So it's completely fine. And we're all just there to have fun. So making movement fun.
That's so good. I know I was doing a group yoga class not that long ago, and I was so embarrassed because she said go to the right, but she wasn't mirroring her images. So she went to the left, so I went to the left, and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone thinks I'm so stupid. I'm so embarrassed. And then I was talking to my friend. She's like, we all had our eyes closed. No one was watching you. No one noticed that.
Yeah. And as instructors, we mess up all the time. I think people think oh, I need to be like the instructor, but we're messing up continually. So be like us, mess up, make mistakes, because that's where you learn and that's where you grow. So yeah.
That's so good. Okay, so I have a question for you as the instructor. How do you go, how many classes are you teaching a day? How do you maintain that?
Yeah, so typically I'll teach about 3 classes a week. And instructors, it totally varies. If you're doing it full time, you're teaching 3 classes a day. I mean, you're teaching all the time, and it totally depends. For cycling, you really only can teach once a day because you're doing the whole workout with the class. Whereas something like bar or Pilates, you could teach several classes because you're walking around the room, you're not really working as much. So it totally depends. But I think that's one of the hard things for instructors is to be able to navigate their workout routines. It was really hard for me to form a routine because I was cycling all the time and I wanted to do other things. And so to any instructors out there or any people aspiring to be instructors or whatever, give yourself grace. And I think for anyone developing a routine too, to just give yourself grace and understand that it's okay to rest once in a while and listen to your body. So yeah, it's weird. I mean, it totally depends, but that's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next question for you then. What are some tangible steps to really starting your fitness journey? Because I think a lot of us can relate. Is what we'll do is we'll well, we don't have enough workout sets. I have to wait until I get my cute workout sets in the mail. And then, you know what? I actually want this cute water bottle and these little weights that I'm going to bring with me. And I'm going to have this whole checklist of things that I need before I can start my fitness journey. So what are a few steps that we can take today to start this, whether mindset or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, I would say realize that there doesn't need to be a start, an end, and pinnacle of your fitness journey. You're never going to get to the highest point. It's just a journey that you're walking through. And so even if you start walking one week and you don't the next week, it doesn't mean that you've failed or that you need to give up. It's just part of your journey. I think one of the things that you were saying about buying sets and the cute water bottles, do those things. I mean, yes. Feel good when you're going into your class or into the gym or whatever you're doing, even if it's just at home, buy the cute stuff, especially if you need that kind of stuff. That's totally me. I needed a really nice set when I auditioned, and it just made all the difference. So definitely do those things, and do the things that make you feel good, right? Like bring the water bottle with you, or plan the meal for after your workout. I would also say just try everything and see what sticks. Try the weird workout classes, try the wraps hanging from the ceilings, try the, running around, try the trampolines, whatever there is. Bring your friends with you. You might feel intimidated by your friends too, but that way you can laugh together. I remember when I first started boxing, I was like, what am I doing? And I was just laughing at myself the whole time. And I'm like, I need a friend here because this is just too funny. So laugh at yourself, make it fun and find the joy. Play the fun music, make a playlist. And even podcasts too. I think that's huge. Like find things to listen to while you walk or while you work out. Get inspired. Find fitness routines that stick with you. So I think all of that kind of stuff, like making it fun and really giving yourself lots of grace.
That's so good. I know. And I absolutely love what you said, because I think when you look at workouts, like it's supposed to be a punishment, which so many women do, because I have to punish myself for eating this thing, or I have to force myself to do this because my body's not good enough. We hate it. We hate the workouts. And what we really have to do is start romanticizing them, start loving them, put on that cute set, put on some gold hoops in your ear and go walk on the treadmill. You know what I mean? Like make it an enjoyable experience for yourself. And when you do that, it's going to be so much more exciting when you get to that point in your day where you're like, you know what, I'm going to go do my little walk for the day, or whatever workout you're doing. And I think when we make that switch from punishment or forcing ourselves to do something because we need a better body or whatever our mindset is, and adjusting that is going to make the whole process so much smoother. So that's something you've talked about in your story is, that body dysphoria. Where are you at now? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, it's something that I definitely still struggle with, but I think that was my mindset a long time ago of this workout is something that I have to do because I'm punishing myself for actions that I've taken in the past. And it's taken a long time to get over that, but I think once you realize that working out and movement is something that you are able to do and that you get to do, and it's an expression of joy, like your body naturally wants to move. Like I have this example where when I was sick and had COVID, like I was laying in my bed and I was just like, all I want to do right now is get up and move, and I'm confined to this room and it's just horrible. And so your body gets into places where it naturally wants to move. And so when you find those exercise routines that just click with you, you're going to find that sense of joy. Now, if you've had a history of eating disorders and body dysmorphia, you have now learned that movement is for punishment, and it is for changing your body or altering it to become smaller or, more this or more that. And so when we start to see movement as, pull it back a little bit and find the restful ways to connect with it a little bit more, that's kind of where we can start to move in saying, I get to do this. I don't have to. There's no one telling me that I need to, but I get to. And it's something that you can then enjoy instead of punishing yourself for doing it. A lot of times I would tell my clients in class, like, feel your feet right now. Like, connect with them. Feel the music pulsing through you. Feel the way that you're letting your legs go. And it's all about that connection. Feeling your muscles, knowing what you can do with your body. It's very inspiring once you kind of like get to that place. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's so good. So switching gears a little bit now, you say you're anti-diet. Can you break that down for me? Tell me what that means.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because a diet simply is literally just what someone eats, right? Like a diet, that's not a bad thing, but culturally, diet culture has transitioned to restrictive eating, telling ourselves that we have to eat to then become smaller, categorizing healthy and unhealthy foods. And a lot of that really transforms into mental health issues. It actually does more harm for your health than good, because most often it results in disordered eating. And so that's something that a lot of society is now struggling with. I know I was listening to a podcast with a registered dietitian, and she was talking about how she anticipates that like 80% of people struggled with disordered eating, which is just so tragic. And it's something that we've learned. It's a completely learned behavior, because when you think about a diet, it's just what you're eating. That's simply what it is. But we've transformed these diets to say, oh, your diet needs to look like XYZ in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Oh, you need to restrict. You need to not have as many calories. You need to watch what you're eating. And a lot of that is going to be really, really negative in terms of your health. And so the reason that I'm anti-diet is because I want to push past that. I don't want to encourage anyone to take up any form of restrictive eating, and a lot of that goes into intuitive eating. So listening to your body and eating the things that feel good for you. And you are going to find naturally that your body does want things that are considered culturally healthy. Like we want water, right? Like we get thirsty and we want water, and we want the apple and the salad, but sometimes we want the chocolate, and that still serves a purpose. And so this framework tells us that different foods are beneficial for different reasons. Like a cake is celebratory and fun, and that's going to be good and joyful. And it's just as good as an apple, which is going to give you so many nutritional benefits, and it's going to fill you and, you know, give you water and all of this stuff. And so we just see it in a different framework, not as good or bad, but just serving different purposes.
That's so good. Yeah, I think I've talked about here on the podcast, I struggle with eating disorders, and, I was in this mindset of restriction. Everything was about, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't have that. And it was in the name of health. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going to look so good, I'm going to be so fit and all this stuff. And what it did was it made me feel like these things were so evil. These certain foods like cake, pasta, they were like my fear foods. I was so scared to enjoy them because I thought that it was wrong and it was going to end up hurting me. And I feel like it's so crazy because people who won't even, like, they'll say, oh, I've never had an eating disorder. They'll be like, oh no, I can't, I have to restrict myself. And that diet culture that we have so ingrained in us really is this like giant disordered eating, just massive issue in our culture. And I can't believe that we've gotten to this point before people like you have started speaking out about this and saying like, oh my gosh, does no one else see the issue? Like, this is crazy. This is insane. 80% of people. And honestly, I would say everyone has struggled with eating at some point because diets are so incredibly prevalent in our time for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's just heartbreaking to me. So what did you do to find balance with food? Because I think honestly, this is something I'm still trying to understand, because my mind is constantly going back and forth between restricting and then being like, well, I still want to be healthy. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I really, really struggled with was that in high school, I was severely under eating. And so my metabolism was not healthy. Like it was super slow. My body was trying to compensate. I was over exercising. A lot of the things that we see with an eating disorder or disordered eating in general. And so through college, it was really, really hard to repair that. My body, I was full all the time. I had the same thing where foods were healthy and bad. And when I ate bad foods, I needed to exercise. And so there was just these patterns. And we talk about yo-yo diets too, where, people restrict and restrict and restrict. And they're like, I can't do this anymore. And so they go off the deep end and binge. And then, and that is seen to be so, so bad for your health. So I finally realized like enough is enough. If I want to be healthy, the best thing for me is actually just being able to listen to my body. So that was kind of my first switch, was like, okay, I'm not healthy. And if I want to be, then I need to find something else. And it was just purely in the name of health. And then I started realizing that there were so many other issues, like mental health and the way that we talk about food to children and the way that, culture has framed different things to be good or bad in terms of like different cultural references, like geographical areas and just all of that. And so I started pointing this out to other people. And I think for myself, the biggest thing that helped me was giving myself a lot of grace when I went back. Because we all do that, right? I mean, we find like, okay, I'm going to quit. I'm going to become so much better. I'm going to stop these disordered eating patterns. And it's really, really hard to get there. And so you're going to have those thoughts. I mean, I still do all the time. And I need to be gracious with myself, because if I don't, then there's even more shame that sits there. So when I do look at that cookie or whatever it is and I say, oh, that's a bad food, I can't eat that. If I do, I need to go do, 10 minutes of abs or whatever. That's where I start to rethink and say, okay, I had that thought and that's okay. But where did that come from and why? And so reclaiming a little bit more of that and offering yourself a little bit more time and space to think about it, and not being harsh on yourself when you realize that you're slipping back into those disordered eating patterns. I had it just the other day where I was like making goals for myself, and I was like, maybe this goal will like help me lose a little weight, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's literally diet culture, because everything in diet culture is about becoming smaller and losing weight. And just offering myself a little bit of grace, and then reframing and really deep diving into my goals and saying, is there any place in here, where I am trying to lose weight? And if so, I need to take that out.
Yeah. And I think even the Bible says we need to capture our thoughts and take hold of them. And I think we always think that's like, oh, that's like when I think like, ooh, what if I steer on the road and accidentally hit this biker? You know what I mean? Like, we're like, oh, that's a horrible thought. But really, it's about food too. Like, we need to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, like that was so bad for me. I can't eat that. I'm going to get so fat. Like, call yourself out and be like, oh my gosh, no, I'm allowed to enjoy, especially I think in social settings, because when you limit yourself in social settings, not only are you impacting yourself, but people do see that. People see, and I realized that how many habits I was partaking in when I would go out and I'd be like, oh, water and a Caesar salad, please, and that's all. And people around me, my friends were watching that, and they were like, oh my gosh, like I feel so guilty now because I got a burger, and just enjoy your food, you know what I mean? Especially in those social settings when you're surrounded by other people, because food is social. It really is. And that's so fun. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? Whether that's going and getting a few drinks with friends or going out to eat. And when you allow yourself to not feel so restricted and free yourself, you have so much fun.
Yeah. And even now you can enjoy that Caesar salad, right? Like, you can still order it and it's going to be so delicious and you're going to love it. And I think that's the mindset too. Like, you get to enjoy all the food. It's not just the food that you're restricting on. Everything becomes so much more beautiful, and food is like this experience. And it takes a while to get there, but like, enjoy the journey, right? Like, maybe it's an apple one day and then it's chocolate and then whatever. But yeah, enjoying the journey. I'm actually listening to Jess Connolly's book right now. And one of the things that she keeps just saying is reclaiming your body as good, and knowing that God looks at the heart. Like, he looks at the heart. That is, just realizing that over and over and over again, that we have been claimed as good. Our food has been claimed as good, and God claims our hearts. And so I think that was a big mindset shift for me too, was like, my body's good, like, that's all there is. It's good.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your new podcast, or newer. I guess how long has it been out now?
Well, it's gone through a lot of changes, but I've recently just released the 7th episode, so it's been a couple months.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And it's seriously so good. So tell us kind of inspiration behind that, and then when people can listen and all the info.
Yeah, so I think after our retreat, I'd always loved podcasting, and I was doing podcasting before the retreat as well. But after the retreat, I just felt this huge call that this message that I was really struggling with, people need to know. Because a lot of the things that I had struggled with were deeply ingrained into my family, and into my social context. And to be honest, it was also ruining my relationship. I was severely putting judgment on my husband and my friends, and I was seeing them not with their bodies as good. I was, putting all of this stuff, and that is really the way that I see Satan and evil, honestly, like just so ingrained into this message. And so I'm like, I have the tools and I need to advocate for this. I just need to do it because more people need to hear about it. And so that's why I've started Not So Niche. There's a lot of other things that I want to talk about and will talk about as well, such as dating and, living through your young 20s. But I think one of the biggest things that really plagues us, especially as young women, is diet culture and body image and exercising. And so that's why I talk about it.
I love it so much. Okay, so how often are you putting out podcast episodes, and when can we listen and where?
Yeah, so I put out podcast episodes weekly, and they are Thursdays. I drop episodes on Thursdays, typically every Thursday. I'm really trying on consistency this year. I really am.
So hard.
But I'm also struggling with 5 different jobs and all of this. So they will be Thursdays weekly. And you can find them anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Typically Apple Podcasts, Spotify are some of the biggest ones. But if you do like Spotify, I always put out a weekly question on Spotify and you can answer it there. So that's a really fun way to engage. And then I'm also on Instagram at notsoniche.pod. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and then if people are obsessed with you, as I know they will be, what is your Instagram, all your things? Tell us where we can find you and talk with you.
Yeah, I would love to connect with everyone. I mean, ask me all the questions, all the good stuff. So I'm on Instagram at Arianna K, and that's with 2 N's, 1 R. I get that a lot. I don't know why. And then Kae. And then you can also find my fitness page at ActiveXREARI. I'm trying to post new workouts and stuff like that on there. But that just has a lot of tips about how to be more comfortable with group fitness and all of that kind of good stuff. And then I'm also on TikTok at Arianna K as well. So yeah, you can find all that good stuff. I also have a website, but it's not very great right now. So you can find that at Arianna K Creative, but there's not as much on there. So yeah.
Yeah, no, those are hard to keep up between the podcast, the website, all of the things, guys. It's a lot.
Yeah, I know. I manage social media for some other people, and they're like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I could do this by myself. I'm like, no, it's a full-time job. I promise you, yes, you can, but it is a full-time job.
Oh my gosh, it's so time consuming. And I feel like so many people are like, oh, you just click post. And it's like, oh, no. There's so much into this.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, we are going to have those links in the show notes for you guys, so they're nice and easy to find. And thank you so much for coming on here and talking about all the things fitness and nutrition and anti-diet. And I'm just so grateful for you, and I love you, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely amazing. So